This will be a quick video on how to prepare the earth before you put it into the forms. This is my dirt mine. It's very important that your dirt mine be uphill of your build site, especially if you're using a wheelbarrow. The reason for that should be pretty obvious. I've had some questions about how to know if you have the right kind of dirt for rammed earth and as well ideal dirt for sandbags. Well, if you're digging up your dried earth and it comes up in clods like this, that can be broken with your hands. It's probably the right kind of dirt. On the other hand, over here in my sand mine, you'll see I have something very different. First of all, it produces, even when dry, it makes fairly little dust. It doesn't hold together. Sand like this is very useful for backfill, for making concrete, for making stucco, but it's no good for rammed earth, and it's really not that great for sandbags because if you have any holes in your bags, it'll start to drain out and settle. Out here in the desert, the soil is far too dry to be used as is. The final rammed earth product holds together by the clay that's inside of the soil, and unless it's watered down and wet, it doesn't activate and it doesn't stick together. I start out by piling 5 wheelbarrow loads into a long loaf, cutting a slot down the middle and filling it up with about 5 gallons of water. I don't bother trying to mix it by hand. It's extremely heavy work. Just let it sit overnight if possible. But if you can let it sit overnight, cover it over with some dry material so that the water doesn't evaporate as quickly. If you're using stabilized rammed earth, you're going to need to mix in cement. But that cement has to be mixed in before you wet down the earth, or else it'll activate and you'll end up with a large concrete log. Also, if you're going to use stabilized rammed earth, you need to prepare much smaller batches that you can prepare and work and put into the forms within, let's say a half an hour or less. Now, once your water's soaked into the pile, go around the outside edges and load that dry dirt back into the trough. Now you'll see some of the water has seeped all the way in and it's changed the way the loaf looks on the sides. Recut your trench and refill it with water. Now you'll find that this method doesn't really get the ends of the loaf wet. That's okay. Work from the center, repile the dry earth into the middle when you're done, and re-wet it again. Once you've let your water settle into that trench, fill the trench back in from the sides, slice it open, and do it again. I found that I need, in this climate with this dirt, somewhere around 5 gallons per wheelbarrow load. So that works out to about 20 gallons per cubic yard. You'll know when you're done when the color of the earth is changed to a dark color and it starts being able to stick together into a ball. Now I've made 2 sets of forms, 1 and 2. Each of them hold about 1 cubic yard each. Now I found that I need 10 wheelbarrow loads per form to fill them up and compact. Now, while your results may vary, I found that about 1 shovelful per square foot is about the right amount of material to put in the forms at one time. Also, if you've got big dry spots like I'm getting here, you may need to add a little bit more water after you spread out the mix. Once you've loaded 4 or 5 inches of dirt into your forms, spread it out evenly with a rake. Now, pay special attention to the corners and the edges. If you've got too much soil in those corners, it becomes difficult to tamp. Now, if you find some dry spots in your mix, like I've got a couple around, you'll need to add more water. Too much water is probably better than not enough water, because not enough water and it'll just fall apart. But too much water will make mud, which can't be compressed, and if you try to work over it, it'll just make a bubble underneath. If you've got too much water, then you really only have to wait until it dries out a bit. I think a watering can for flowers or something would do a much better job than this cup. But I don't have one handy. Now that my forms are loaded up, I'm ready to start ramming. Now be careful here. It's an easy job, but it's very, very hard on the joints, the hands, the elbows. I always start off in the corners. You'll need to hit each location 5 to 10 times. Now, the dirt sort of makes a different sound, a different feel once it's finished compressing. It's not easy to explain, but you'll know it when it happens. Now, once you start ramming, you'll quickly know if your soil is too wet or too dry. Now, over here, you'll see the soil is slightly too wet. There's water seeping out as I hammer it in. Now, a little water seepage is actually a good thing. But if you get too much, the soil starts splashing and it starts moving around like a gel. That won't work. Now you can see here in this corner, this earth is a little bit too wet. It's more of mud. And as I try to compact it, it just slides around and wiggles like a gel. I'm going to have to leave this and let it dry out some before I continue with the next layer. I've put in some dirt that's just a bit too dry. So what I'm going to do is tamp it down just a little bit. I'm not going to ram it home. But I'm going to tamp it down a bit, and then I'm going to pour in a good amount of water. Then I'm going to go make myself some breakfast. That should be everything you need to know to have a successful rammed earth project. I'm going to go ahead and make a PDF of the plans for these forms online so you can build them yourself if you like. Hope your project goes well, and thanks for watching.